Hello and welcome to week 24. Today we'll be doing our usual rhythm warm-up with triplets and eighth note syncopation, although I want you to note that this week and next week will be our last rhythm warm-ups to focus on triplets, and we'll be moving on to 16th notes soon. So as soon as we get to minor sevenths, we're going to be checking out 16th note syncopation. So get ready for that. Only a couple more triplet warm-ups left. Then we'll be doing our usual dominant seventh drill. And then we'll be checking out a piece I wrote called Schrödinger's Blues. And this is meant to explore some more unusual qualities of the blues, how you can get really creative with it and create some interesting blues progressions that aren't so just cut and dry. But anyways, let's go ahead and get warmed up at the drum. Let's get started with our week 24 rhythm warm-up. We're going to start on line 1 with the metronome at 40 BPM, and each of these clicks will represent an upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Change your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Hands together, top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. Let's take a look at line 2. We'll speed our metronome up to 45 BPM. Each click will still represent an upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Let's take a look at line 3. We'll put our metronome onto halftime. So we'll be speeding up to 50 BPM while we put our metronome on 25 BPM, and it will now represent only the first and the third upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one really tests your internal beat. I didn't even realize it when I wrote it, but that one's kind of tough. All right, so you're really going to have a strong internal view of where the downbeats are. If you can always keep track of the 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the most important thing you can always do for these exercises. Hopefully we've figured that out by now, but I am constantly having to remind myself, and there's nothing wrong about that. Let's move on. Last but not least, to line 4. The metronome will remain on halftime, so we will be going at 60 BPM, although the metronome is now set at 30 BPM, and the clicks will now represent the upbeat of the 2 and the 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Now that we're rhythmically warmed up, we can head back over to the piano. For today's dominant 7th drill, we'll be looking at B dominant 7, G flat dominant 7, and D flat dominant 7. Notice how in the G flat dominant 7 and the D flat dominant 7 we have F flat and C flat, but remember, who cares? It's a little bit weird, but what we really want to get in our heads is the shape of these chords on the piano, because in the end it doesn't matter what you write it as if you've got that core shape within you. All right, let's take a look at these on the keyboard now. We'll get things started with B dominant 7th, and we'll be doing our right-hand inversions first. Let's do our left-hand inversions. And now we'll do one single chord with both of our hands together. All right, let's think about Mixolydian mode. B is the 5 of E, so we'll play the E major scale, except we'll do it from B to B, and let's go ahead and put a B dominant chord in our left hand when we do that. And we'll switch it up. Now let's do our G flat dominant 7th chord, starting with our right hand inversions. Okay, left hand inversions. And then we're going to do one single chord with our hands together. And now let's get our minds into that mixolydian mode. So G flat is the 5 of B, what we were just playing, or in this case that would be, we would call it F sharp, right? And so the key of B is, remember, all 5 black keys and just 2 white keys. And we'll now play that shape between these 2 keys. So here we go with our left hand chord. And let's switch it with our chord in the right hand and the scale in the left hand. And then the last chord that we're going to do today is D flat dominant 7th. So let's start with our right hand inversions. Let's do our left hand inversions. We'll do one single chord between both of our hands now. And then let's think mixolydian. D flat is the 5 of G flat where we just were. So if we play the G flat major scale and then start that instead on D flat, we'll put the D flat chord in our left hand, and here we go. Put the chord in our right hand and the scale in our left hand. Let's talk about Schrödinger's blues today, okay? Now, my music degree only qualifies me to count to 4, so this is probably way beyond my pay grade, but I believe Schrödinger's cat is a famous quantum physics paradox where something can exist in 2 states simultaneously, all right? And then through some strange quantum mechanics, ultimately come out to maybe one thing. Like I said, I'm only qualified to count to 4, but keeping with the idea of maybe one thing being in 2 different states at once, what I did with today's blues, as you can see, is that half of this piece looks very similar to a B flat blues, whereas the other half of it looks very similar to an A flat blues, right? So what we've got here is a blues that is simultaneously in the key of B flat and the key of A flat, and if you really want to have your mind blown, it's written in the key of E flat, right? So this isn't just 2 states at once, this is 3 states at once. Anyways, believe it or not, I got the idea for Schrödinger's blues loosely based off of a Miles Davis song called Freddie Freeloader, which is a blues from his Kind of Blue album. And although he doesn't do this same thing, there's something about the melody and the way that the melody of Freddie Freeloader matches up with the chord changes of the blues that ultimately led me to realize that you could splice these 2 keys together within one blues, okay? So that's where the inspiration came from. Those are the roots of Schrödinger's blues, although it is very much a strange piano dojo invention. Now, one more thing before we get started on this is that although this is a far out there concept, I did want to go ahead and give you another tool that is just a very simple tool that we use in the left hand, because that is one of the #1 questions I get in these these styles of jazz and blues, where you really are becoming more and more responsible for creating your own left hand, right? What do I do with my left hand? And a few options that I've given you so far are the simple rolling bass lines, right? We've got walking bass lines. But one thing that is very popular and very useful in any of these styles is what we call a shell voicing, like a seashell, as in a shell voicing. And if you look at the left hand here, you can notice that we have some pretty far intervals, but that they're all very empty, right? And that's why we kind of call it a shell, because in all of these voicings, what we're doing is we're playing the do and the flat 7, right? So for B flat, you have your B flat here and you have your A flat here. It sounds very good in the left hand to take out these middle notes, because this is too muddy, all right, when you've also got the melody going on. And so the shell voicing is very useful because not only is it harmonious, but you can also use it. You can also use it rhythmically. You can play it on downbeats and it sounds good, right? So we're gonna see a lot of shell voicings being used in this, and there's even gonna be times where we're walking the shell voicing chromatically, okay? Now, sometimes at first, shell voicings can be difficult to see because you might think to yourself, is that an octave or is that the flat 7? And one way you can tell whether or not it's a shell or if it's an octave is that in a shell voicing, both of the notes are going to be in a space and a space, or a line and a line. Whereas in an octave, because if you'll remember, in octaves we alternate spaces and lines, right? So if this B flat is on this line, then it will next be in this space, then it will be on this line, then it will be on this space, right? So in an octave, you have one note on a line and another note on a space, or vice versa. Whereas in a shell voicing, when you have a do and some kind of T, they're both going to be on a space, or they're both going to be on a line, okay? Little pro tip, it's very subtle, but it's something to look out for. Now, when you play through this song, and this goes for a lot of blues, it is only 12 measures long, and that's not very long, right? It can go by pretty quick. So a lot of times when you play the blues, you ultimately end up playing the melody twice, right? Repetition is something that's very useful in music. It really helps the audience connect to the idea, because maybe you've heard this song a million times, but they haven't. And so hearing it twice simply reinforces it for them, all right? Now, because it is a blues, you could play the melody twice and then be done, all right? But you could also do what we looked at last week, where we strip the melody out. We think of slash notation or nothing here, and what we do is we go by the chords and we maybe take a solo. We take an improvised solo, okay? Now, when you're doing an improvised solo, I urge you to try your blues scales. Try to make fun shapes inside of the blues scales. Create sequences. All of the things that you've been looking at melodically on your sight reading are all tools and tricks and vocabulary for how to use scales to generate melodic material. Either long pieces of melodic material or short pieces of melodic material that are all stuck together, right? So there really is no one thing I can say to convey, this is how you solo, this is how you improvise. But hopefully as we journey and we read music, and this is another reason why literacy is so good, the more literate you are, the more you can read. The more you read and expose yourself to the language of music, the more depth you can personally get in the things that you develop and how you say those things, right? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read this song 2 times. Then I'm going to take a solo, maybe 2 times again. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be improvisation, so who knows what's going to happen. And then I will read it 2 more times as the melody suggests and end it, okay? So without further ado, I give you Schrödinger's Blues. And there we have it, week 24 of our studies. If you enjoyed that music and would like to purchase the chart or any of the warm-ups, diagrams, anything you ever see on these videos, you can do so at my website, pianodojo.com. A couple more weeks of triplets until we get to the 16th notes. I'm really looking forward to that and finishing up our dominants. And until next time, happy practicing.